Dr. Elena Vasquez had been studying the anomalous readings from Sector 7G for 3 months when the impossible happened. The gravitational disturbances that had puzzled astronomers across the galaxy suddenly ceased, replaced by something far more terrifying: absolute stillness in a region of space that should have been teeming with cosmic radiation. "Professor, you need to see this," her research assistant called from the quantum telescope array. The young man's voice carried a tremor that made Elena's blood run cold. In 15 years of deep space research, she had never heard Marcus sound afraid. The holographic display materialized above the central platform, showing a 3-dimensional map of local space. Where Sector 7G should have been, there was nothing, not empty space, but an actual void in reality itself, as if someone had carved a perfect sphere out of the universe and taken it elsewhere. "Run a full spectrum analysis," Elena commanded, her scientific mind racing even as her instincts screamed danger. "Check for tachyon signatures, quantum foam disturbances, anything that might explain this." But before Marcus could comply, the void began to change. Light bent inward at its edges, not the gentle curvature of gravitational lensing, but sharp, angular deflections that violated every known law of physics. The darkness within the sphere started to pulse with a rhythm that seemed almost biological. Across the galaxy, every major civilization received the same transmission simultaneously. It arrived not through subspace radio or quantum entanglement, but by direct insertion into the consciousness of every sentient being capable of understanding it. The message was simple, ancient, and absolutely terrifying. The Guardian stirs. Admiral Thex 9 of the Andromedan Collective felt the words burn themselves into his neural pathways as he stood on the bridge of the dreadnought Void Render. Around him, his crew beings from a dozen different species all showed the same expression of primal fear that transcended biological differences. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, her voice barely above a whisper, "we're receiving similar reports from every fleet in the galaxy." The message. It came to everyone at once. Thex 9's cybernetic implants began running historical database searches automatically, seeking any reference to Guardian that might explain this phenomenon. What he found made his organic heart skip several beats. The legends were older than recorded history, passed down through the genetic memories of races so ancient they had become myth themselves. They spoke of Earth Sentinel, a consciousness so vast and powerful that it had once held dominion over entire galactic clusters. The stories claimed it had voluntarily entered dormancy eons ago, choosing sleep over the burden of eternal vigilance. But now it seemed something had awakened it. In Sector 7GE, the void began to contract. Reality rushed back in to fill the empty space, but it came back wrong. Stars that had been scattered across light years of space were now arranged in perfect geometric patterns. Planets hung in formations that spelled out equations in languages that wouldn't be invented for another million years. Even the cosmic background radiation had been reorganized into a symphony of mathematical precision. Elena watched in horrified fascination as her instruments registered energy signatures beyond their ability to measure. "Marcus, are you getting this? The quantum field fluctuations. They're not random anymore. They're organized, purposeful." "Professor," Marcus replied, his face pale as he stared at the incoming data streams. "It's not just organized. It's thinking. The entire sector has been converted into some kind of massive processing matrix." The truth was far more terrifying than either of them realized. The Guardian wasn't just awakening, it was remembering why it had chosen to sleep. Deep within the reorganized sector, consciousness stirred for the first time in 67 million years. The entity that had once been Earth's protector slowly became aware of its surroundings, its vast mind stretching across the restructured space like a spider testing its web. It remembered the green world of its birth, the small, fragile creatures that had somehow given rise to something infinite. It remembered the joy of their first tentative steps into space, the pride it had felt as they began to spread among the stars. Most clearly of all, it remembered the day it realized that its very existence was preventing them from becoming what they were meant to be. How could humanity learn to stand on its own with an omnipotent guardian watching over them? How could they develop their own strength, their own wisdom, their own path to transcendence, if every threat was eliminated before they even knew it existed? So the Guardian had chosen exile, arranging its own disappearance from history and settling into the deep sleep of the cosmic void. It had trusted that humanity would be strong enough to survive without its protection. But now, as its awareness expanded across the galaxy, it saw what had become of its children's children. It saw the Andromedan collective strip mining entire systems for resources. It observed the vegan empire enslaving lesser species for genetic experimentation. It witnessed a dozen other civilizations treating human colonies as primitive curiosities, suitable only for conquest or study. Worst of all, it saw Earth itself, now little more than a museum world, its population reduced to a few million authentic primitives maintained for the amusement of galactic tourists. The Guardian's rage was a tangible force that rippled through space-time itself. Admiral Thex 9 felt the first tremor as his ship's hull began to vibrate in harmonics that threatened to tear it apart. Around him, displays flickered and died, as the very laws of physics seemed to protest the presence of something that existed beyond their authority. "Sir," his communications officer called out, "we're receiving reports from across the fleet. Every ship, every station, every inhabited world in the galaxy is reporting the same phenomenon. Reality itself is unstable." The Guardian's voice, when it finally spoke, didn't use words. Instead, it communicated through direct manipulation of quantum probability, ensuring that every sentient being in the galaxy understood its meaning with perfect, terrifying clarity. "You have forgotten what you are. You have forgotten what they are. I will remind you." Elena Vasquez watched from her research station as stars began to move. Not metaphorically, not slowly over cosmic time, but literally relocating themselves across the galaxy in patterns that defied comprehension. Entire civilizations found their home systems displaced, their worlds intact, but suddenly orbiting different suns in configurations that formed a vast, three-dimensional message visible from anywhere in the galaxy. THEYUNDERMYPROTEC. The Guardian's next actions were surgical in their precision. Every military installation threatening human space simply stopped working. Not destroyed, not damaged, but rendered as inert as decorative sculptures. Weapons that had taken centuries to develop became unable to fire. Shields that had protected entire worlds became as transparent as glass. But it was the Guardian's final demonstration that truly broke the galaxy's will to resist. In the span of a single heartbeat, every aggressive species found their most sacred, most heavily defended homeworlds, relocated to orbit around Sol, arranged in a perfect sphere around humanity's birth system. The message was clear: humanity was not alone, had never been alone, and anyone who threatened them would find themselves facing something that treated the laws of physics as gentle suggestions rather than absolute constraints. Dr. Elena Vasquez smiled as she watched the readings from her instruments normalize. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy was quiet, not the silence of the void, but the respectful hush of children who had just remembered that their father was home. The Guardian settled back into its vigil, no longer sleeping, but no longer hidden. Earth had its protector back, and the galaxy would never again forget that some species were not meant to be conquered. They were meant to be revered.